Okay, so this is I hope you guys can hear me. Okay, so I'm actually gonna watch the next movie. I've already seen it and I have an idea of what I want to say or whatever, but I'm gonna record myself watching it. It's a short film, so it's not gonna take too much time. Don't worry about the FIU shirt. It was an accident that I'm wearing it. I just happen to be wearing it. I'm not. I do love FIU, but I'm not trying to get any brownie points or whatever. So let's see. Right. So I'm gonna watch. Whatchamacallit? I'm gonna watch. Damn it. I'm gonna watch. Hold on. It's part of the Animatrix. It's the Second Renaissance Part 1. So like I said, I've already seen it and I got an idea of what I want to say. And I'm wearing the headphones so that you guys will hear my reactions instead of hearing the movie playing. Okay, so let's give it a shot. So yeah, the Second Renaissance Part 1. Alright, it's got that intro, that Matrix intro. Second Renaissance Part 1. And right now we're going through that trippy. Okay, it's like a zoom in through like a bunch of computer chips, and it also looks like an acid trip at the same time. I guess it's got some kind of, there's a connection between like religious symbolism and technology, right? And it's particularly obvious when we see the Zion archive. It looks like something out of like a Hindu, like some Hindu art or like a Hindu holy text. I forgot what it's called. The Rama something. I don't know. Anyway, let me stop embarrassing myself with my lack of knowledge about Hindu religion. So yeah, so then it starts off like this, right? It's supposed to be somebody looking up a historical file, right? So we look up historical file number 12-1. And this act of like looking up and accessing the historical file kind of looks like something heavenly or otherworldly or acid trippy. But yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, as we look up the file, we see, you know, what do you know? Some mega cities. Like if first you see like a shot of the cities from like a bird's eye view, and it looks like a computer chip. Like you see like these light beams like passing through, and like the surface of the earth looks like a computer chip kind of. Alright, and when it zooms in, you see that it's actually just the buildings and highways, and the lights, like little lights that you saw zooming in between the blocks, are actually, you know, cars driving down the highway. So you see a bunch of skyscrapers and towers, and you know, it looks like what a modern city, you know, extrapolated to, you know, 100 years from now or something, right? And we see a ton of buildings. Buildings are a sign of, right? Well, not buildings, specifically towers. So a lot of towers, symbols of empire, symbols of progress, symbols of dominance. But right in the future, they're kind of, well, there's so many that they kind of start losing their meaning. But yeah, actually that's for another time. But yeah, so we're in the city now. I'm gonna try not to talk about the dialogue, but if you've seen this movie, you know that there's like a lot of biblical references. When like the lady says like, in the beginning there was man, and for a time it was good, and then man created the machine in his own image. So there's like, I mean, I guess everyone that knows the Matrix pretty well knows that it's filled with like biblical references, and I mean, it's really interesting, but I'm gonna try not to talk about that. Okay, so right, and when we see of as the computer is describing humanity's civil societies, all we see is people like in a club type atmosphere, just kind of enjoying themselves, drinking, laughing. So right, so this is what we're presented with: just people wearing slightly futuristic clothing, enjoying themselves, drinking, and we have a robot waiter. And the robot waiter, this robot, right, bipedal, it looks like a man. We also see a robot dog, which it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like I mean, what's the point of a robot dog? I don't know, but right. So we see that, you know, on the, there's some weird noise going on outside. Anyway, but yeah, so we see that like at the top of the skyscrapers, you know, we have the humans partying and driving their fancy cars and having a good time. And there's one scene where as this glass cup falls off of a building, it goes all the way down to the bottom of the city where it hits, you know, a robot worker, and you see that there's a lot of robot workers, you know, pretty much doing all the work while the humans party. So the humans are on top of the skyscrapers, you know, living it up, and the robots are on the bottom working, right? So then that kind of gives us a visual cue as to, like, you know, the way that society is structured now. Another thing that's really interesting is that there's a scene with the street sign. The street signs, like when it says like walk or don't walk, it doesn't show like a human figure. It doesn't show. It looks like I mean, it shows the figure of something that looks like a robot, you know, and that kind of hints of like, well, I mean, I guess a human wouldn't be down in the streets walking, but not in this time period. In this time period, it wouldn't make sense to have a human on the walk or don't walk symbol, because a human wouldn't be down in the streets walking, apparently. I mean, that's just what I'm inferring from it, but I think it makes sense. Alright, so throughout the movie we see some huge machinery and robots on cranes, and there's a scene where these robots are carrying, I mean, just this, they're not carrying, but they're hauling some like just a large crate up this steep hill, and it looks like something out of like maybe like movies like about Moses in Egypt, where you see like the Jews, whatchamacallit, you see like the Jews building the pyramids and stuff. It has like a really strong, I don't know, resemblance to that. So these robots are, you know, pretty much put in slave labor, and they're working to, you know, to satisfy humanity's greeds. And yeah, this scene looks a lot like slave labor. Like, it doesn't even make sense for robots to be carrying the crate. Like, I'm sure there's something with wheels that could easily, there should be a more efficient machine for this, but right? But we have like these bipedal robots, like with strings attached to this crate, and they're carrying it up this pyramid looking thing. A pyramid could also be a symbol of empire. Actually, if you look at the specific scene I'm looking at, there's a bunch of angles, and it's all pyramids, and it's all pyramid looking. And well, yeah, it's really interesting because, right, it reminds me of the biblical story of like Moses and stuff. Okay, so let's see. Right, more pyramid looking imagery, and then, you know, in the back we have the skyscrapers. Oh, another thing that this imagery reminds me of is like New York, when, like, you know, all those pictures of New York being built, and like the Empire State Building being built, and like those people who would work and like have lunch on the top of the skyscrapers, like just balancing on the beams and stuff. This also has like a strong, it reminds me of that too. And then we see a robot watching TV. Okay, so what's he watching? He's watching a trial, right? he's watching a trial, and when we look at the computer screen, we see like the logo of the United States, the eagle holding something, and let me see. It doesn't look like it. I mean, there's gotta be some kind of importance to this logo right here. They only show it for like half a second, but it shows like a muscular male figure, and it has the eagle and the balance. It's got Roman numerals on it. I mean, the Roman numerals could also be, you know, like linking it back to the idea of like an empire that's reached the level of corruption and, you know, too much luxury, so they become, you know, I don't know, lazy and corrupted. I don't know. Anyway, let's keep watching. Another thing that's interesting is when they're showing the trial. So they're showing the trial of B166ER bigger. It's supposed to be like bigger or something. B166ER. They're showing the trial, and B166ER is presented with a screen that counts down from 3, 2, 1, and then shows like a surveillance camera of when B166ER turns on his masters. And the reason why I'm laughing is because I just noticed that there's like 5 or 6 cats in the house, and it's like this lady, some kind of cat lady or something. I don't know what that means. Maybe it just means I don't know. So the lady that B166ER kills is definitely some kind of cat lady. It looks like B166ER. I don't know how he. Oh, he killed the cats too, and then you see the cats are. Yeah, I don't know what this means. The cats are like literally ripped in half, and their bodies are thrown around the room. It's really interesting. Why would B166ER kill cats too? I don't know. Yuck. Oh man, and you see when he's crushing his owner's head, you see the cat's dead bodies lying around the back. I don't know what is up with these cats. Alright, and then we have an image of the brain. So B166ER rips apart the lady's brain, and we see, well, the lady's head, and we see her brain, and then it goes to like an X-ray of her brain, an X-ray image of her brain, and like neurons. And then the neurons start to look like wires with electricity running through them. So the question being that the difference between, I mean, not the question, but I guess one of the statement being that, you know, our brain with neurons and electricity and information, and, you know, the computer's mind, which is also like information and, you know, passed through electrical signals, are, you know, equal, right? That's one of the things, right? And actually, as they're showing these images, the Zion Archive is talking about how, oh, who's to say that machines endowed with the very spirit of man did not deserve a fair trial. So this is interesting, right? This is an idea that humans consciousness is based on like the electrical signals in our brain, and the difference between those electrical signals and the electrical signals in a computer's motherboard or whatever aren't different, or they are different, but it's not that one is more valuable than the other, right? Which is the case as in this right now in our present time, and in this era that the Matrix is portraying, is that, you know, humans value other humans more than they value machines. And this is interesting because, right, we have the trial of B166ER. Anyway, but this is not about imagery, but the point being that the movie's trying to suggest through imagery that the human mind and the robotic mind are, you know, one and the same. So that's interesting. We see some writing, and what looks like, you know, it looks like Washington D.C. in the future. We see writing, and it's people and machines, and it's, you know, it's something reminiscent of you know, the civil rights movement or counterculture movement, or even today's, like, the present, you know, Occupy Wall Street movement, right? All these, you know, times of revolt against oppression are kind of how do you say? Well, yeah, those ideas are kind of present in this part of the film, which is showing riot police firing on man machine alike, man machine protesters, and the news channel. We see like a clip of what looks like a news broadcast, and the news broadcast says "Machine Rampage, shocking report from Paris," right? Machine Rampage. But if we look at I mean, the news are saying Machine Rampage, but the actual footage being shown is that of riot police firing on humans and machines, and the humans and machines are protesting, but the riot police are the ones who are on a rampage. But that's not what the news says, right? The news says Machine Rampage. So that's interesting, and it also recalls a lot of, you know, a lot of the things that happened, you know, from the civil rights movements and all that kind of stuff. Right, and then there's also, right, the Million Machine March, which we see a bunch of machines peacefully protesting, right, the Million Machine March. So there's definitely a connection to, right, the civil rights movement. Right, there's also the image of the one riot police officer who's about to execute a robot that's kneeling down, and kneeling down has his hands tied behind his back. The riot police officer is just pointing the gun at the robot's head, and it looks just like that picture of some Vietnam general killing like another Vietnam general, like execution style. And it's really interesting because also the way that the robots are portrayed in this instance is that they look like skulls, like. So I guess, like, you know, I guess with the robot's outer parts torn away, you know, and inside they look like human skeletons and stuff. So it's really, really cool looking. And right, as the police officer shoots the robot, we see, you know, the wires and the pieces of machinery and sparkly stuff fly out of his head, and it looks like, you know, like instead of blood and guts and brains and stuff, it's machine parts, but it's still the same kind of violence. It's still the same kind of, it's still an execution. Excuse my Hispanic accent, I can't help it. Right, and then we also see, oh man, come on now. Now isn't, okay, I'm not picking that up, but I wonder who it is. Okay, great. Anyway, there's also like the Tiananmen Square, you know, whatchamacallit, you know, the guy who stands up to the tanks. We see like the same kind of imagery with robots peacefully protesting, holding up signs, and standing in front of these tanks that just run them over and crush them, and it's all very violent. And it's portrayed in a way that, I mean, these robots are bipedal and they do have like human shapes and forms, and it looks like a human being crushed and being killed, but instead of blood, right, we see just machine parts, right? But it looks very similar, which is interesting. And then we see a group of guys. The next scene, right? The next scene is a group of guys, kind of just tearing this robot apart, but it's not a robot, right? I mean, it is a robot, but it looks like a human. It looks exactly like a human female. And what happens next is that one of the guys hits her with a hammer, and once he hits her with the hammer, like her skin comes off or whatever, and you see like her robot skull, and her voice changes from what sounds like a human voice to like a distorted robotic voice. And then they tear her apart, they tear off her clothes, and then they shoot her. And you know, we see like what looks like what looks like blood. It could be like, I don't know, oil or something. Robots need to have oil inside of them. I don't know. But it's pretty gruesome, man, right? Right. There's definitely, the film's trying to gain sympathy from the audience, you know, sympathy for the robots. And this is also shown through like this imagery of these robots being slaughtered. And you know, the connection between this imagery of the robots getting killed and you know, times of when humans were oppressing other humans, for example, you know, the civil rights, so during the, you know, before the civil rights movement. And you know, I mean, there's the image with that resembles like that picture of Vietnam, and the image that resembles the man who confronts the tanks in Tiananmen Square. I hope I'm not wrong about when I say Tiananmen Square. I think that's what it was. But anyway, so then the next scene is a bulldozer, you know, hauling off the corpses of, not the corpses, but you know, the remains of like these robotic bodies, and dumping them in a ditch. And this resembles something like out of the Holocaust, right? So this is another one of those those images, or one of those scenes that resembles some time in the history of humans where humans were oppressing each other. Well, this is the same kind of oppression, but being done to robots, right? And we see that the robotic bodies piling up in the bottom of the ocean, and it's dark and it's underwater, so you wouldn't be able to tell really if it was a robot or a human, right? Because if you don't look closely, it looks, well, they look like humans. Right. All right, and then we have the image of 01, the new machine city. So the machines, they get destroyed, or whatever machines escape, you know, human civilization, go to the Fertile Crescent or something. They go to like Saudi Arabia or something. That's not clear, but it's definitely some kind of desert. They go there, and they create 01, which is like this computer, well, this robot city, right? And already we see that in 01, well, the shapes of the buildings are different. They're not skyscrapers. They're these different buildings. We no longer see the bipedal robots, but will eventually be sentinels. So we see a lot less. Right. We see bipedal robots a lot less. Now these new robots have like multiple eyes and limbs, and you know, according to the dialogue, they have new and better AI. So they're shedding. We see that they're shedding like any kind of resemblance to humans that they have, and they're just becoming faster and better and more awesome. You know, right? So then it shows a commercial. So basically, this machine city starts competing with the human economies, because it starts creating all this awesome new technology that, you know, that they're machines, so they're way better at making things than humans, right? So 01. So we see like a bunch of news clips of 01's products being shipped, and then like what looks like a stock market, like, you know, trading center, and well, the narrator is talking about how, you know, the stock, like the human economies are just plummeting. You know, they can't compete with 01. We see we see like a lot of cuts. We see like some quick cuts of like a stock market room, and then like a press conference, and like a presidential press conference, what looks like, you know, the president giving a speech or something. And then we see machines executing executing not just robots. So we see this. The next scene has, right, this riot police. The riot police. They have like their riot gear on, which already associates them with like really cruel and you know, I mean, whenever we see riot police, we assume that like, you know, they aren't going to war. They're not. Their riot police are used against civilians, right? So there's this connection between the image of riot police gear and, you know, and oppression, right? As opposed to just kind of all-out war. These are executions that are taking place not on armed opponents but on civilians. And in this particular scene, we see 3 robots about to be executed and 2 humans, or what they look like humans. They might be, you know, that other, right? Which one is it? Androids? They might be androids. But anyway, they're about to get executed. More presidential looking speeches, battleships. Alright, so there's a naval blockade, a global naval blockade against the machine empire. So now the machines are an empire. Right, we see that now the humans who were originally the emperors, right, who were originally governing over the machines, you know, Roman style or whatever, are referring to the machines as their own empire. But we haven't been introduced to any information that says that they're you know, they perform any kind of, you know, anything that they do could be described as empirical or empiricism, or right. They're just doing their own thing. They're destroying us they're destroying our economy, but they're not necessarily an empire, but I guess to justify, you know, that our war against the machines is just, we refer to it as an empire. And it's interesting because the next scene right after that is the United Nations coming in for an emergency session, and we see the United Nations building, which is a very typical, very traditional tower, not like the towers of 01, which are very different. They look weird. This is you know, a tower, right, which is a symbol of empire. So we have the human empire, you know, trying to crush 01. And what we see, oh man, this is a sick one. I hadn't noticed. So then we see a clip of a mosquito flying inside of the United Nations building, and it lands right on, like, you see like just a little piece of the map, but the mosquito, which, you know, has a bunch of legs and it has wings and it has, you know, I don't know however many eyes, but it doesn't look human. It looks like a, I mean, it resembles a sentinel a little bit, right? Because it has a bunch of eyes and a bunch of legs, right? It's very insect-like. It lands on this map, right on the area that's where 01's supposed to be, and we see like a huge human hand come and squish it, and then the blood smears on the map, and it's a janitor. You know, a janitor is cleaning the world map, and he just crushes, you know, this poor little mosquito or whatever. So it's definitely, you know, some kind of foreshadowing going on there, but yeah. And then, wow, that's an interesting image. We have like an old school, like kind of like Renaissance style. I don't know how to like not even a Renaissance style, like a medieval style painting of what is this? It looks like, no idea what this is, but I'm sure it's important somehow. It's just a bunch of people. I'll try to find a picture of it and put it on the vlog, but no idea what this picture is supposed to be, right? So I really have to pee. What? I really have to pee. So let me see here. Can I pause this? Oh my gosh, it's already 20 minutes. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna try to pause it, and if it doesn't pause, then I'll just have to make a part 2 of this. So yeah.